works better. Okay, good. All right. Hello, class. Hi, Stephen. And so today, what is it, February 16th for CHRDC 381, and we are doing the online learning. And today, I just have this meeting before reading break, and we just want to review the two main assignments. So, Stephen, I will walk through if there's any questions and whatnot. I'm glad to answer that. Were there any? How's the course going? Is it seeming all right? I get the odd email from students, and I read the feedback on discussion boards. Did you have any questions or concerns, Stephen?
No, it's been all good for me. I like the flow of it. It's been busy for me, but yeah, it's been clear and yeah, it's been manageable. So
okay,
yeah,
I've been doing these. Like, I feel like after reading the discussion boards, I just feel like students have done this. I want to give some feedback. So I notice most students are watching the videos, or at least last week they did. So I've done that just as a feedback. So yeah. Okay. What would you prefer? I'll go over the lesson plan assignment first. How's that sound?
yeah, that's the one I'm most interested in. It's a long
Okay.
assignment. So if there's any little hints or anything that can help out.
Okay, so let's walk through that, and I'll walk us through that, and then when we're done, I'll just talk to the part A of the final exam some, because I think it's good to just get us thinking a bit. It'll be helpful, but I won't spend too much time. I have to take my daughter to an appointment. I got to leave at 4:15, so we will be done in 45 minutes for sure,
That's perfect.
or less. Yeah. If we need less time, that's just fine too. So if you go into E-class and then go to the lesson plan assignment, then you click on the explanation, and oh, this isn't it. Nuts. I got the wrong assignment. I'll try screen share again. Gosh darn it. Hi. Okay, now sorry about that. I'm getting a mission statement. Think I could read properly. Okay, here we go. And I will zoom in so we get a good look at it. The reason for this assignment is that I know that when I think of my undergraduate students, they haven't taught a religion class before. And so one is just that they get a chance to do it because they might not be able to in a practicum. But I think for somebody like yourself, who is a teacher, new to a Catholic district, it's a good experience to just walk through and talk about it. Have somebody that's done this for a living and does this full time and can give feedback. The other piece is that's great is that you can view other people's lesson plans. And I think that just gives you some insight of how things are done differently, because so often as teachers, we just teach and we don't actually get to see many other people teach. And it also gives you a sampling of it. The idea here is that, so it's a lesson plan. So basically what you'll do is you'll form a group. So let's say there's 4 of you, and you'll agree on a few times to meet, and you will take turns teaching a lesson from the Alberta curriculum, from the locally developed course, as it's called in Alberta. And so on the video this week, what we had laid out was the actual programs that are used, and I showed them and demonstrated that this week. And now you'll be using those programs to use that. So I'll be speaking a bit more to a few of the finer details after the break in terms of what the actual locally developed course that is approved by the minister. We'll look at that. But what's different in religious education is that the programs are they're first written by, I guess, Catholic education broadly. That includes teachers, other leaders, curriculum writers, but also the bishops, and gets their approval. And from there, that's done on a national level. And then locally, we say, oh, we're going to use this program, and we write up a document and the ministry approves that. And so it's unlike other places where, like in like a social studies curriculum, the curriculum's written and approved by the minister, and then afterwards we use programs to make it fit with that. So it's in the reverse order. how it works in religious ed in Catholic schools. So, so we know the basics of what you're going to do. Now, my goal is simply that you just get thinking about learning outcomes, that religion is a real class, and that we should be thinking about, what do I want my students to learn from this? And we divide it up into 3 areas, and we'll go through this in the term. It will be cognitive, affective, and spiritual outcomes. That's how I've divided it up. So we're thinking more of the whole person in the religion classroom. And then we want to be thinking about, what's the larger purpose of religious education within my teaching. It's not that I'm just checking a box and getting through one more set of outcomes, but what's my point in doing this in religious education? So when we think of secondary school, then there's new programs in grade 7 and 8 in Catholic schools. Grade 9 is a very old program that's probably nearly 25 years old. And then the grade 10 and 12 are from the early 2000s. And then the grade 11 is a hodgepodge of things. And then we also have this world religions program. So the video explained all of that. But what you're going to be doing is choosing a lesson out of those programs to teach to peers. So you get an experience of planning and to teach it, and feedback and reflection on your teaching. I ask that when you do choose something to teach, don't pick from the first or last unit, because then you're like doing an introductory activity, learning students' names or something, and it's not really valuable. Pick something in the middle. The other thing is that I want you to use a biblical text somehow, because the Bible's a sola theology as taught at Vatican II, and so we want to engage the biblical story. Good. Now, what the easiest route to go would be to choose the grade 7 and 8 program, because there everything's online. So I reviewed that in the video this week. So if you go there, and it's got videos, it's got songs, it's got everything there. So it's kind of the Rolls Royce of religious ed. But if you're not at a junior high, or you want to teach high school, then you'll want to work in the high school program. And what's important there is that then you look at the different programs that I reviewed in the video this week. So let's say you choose to decide the grade 10 program, which is Christ and Culture. And so you would pick a lesson from there to teach from, okay? And when you choose that lesson plan, you can say, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to teach everything right from it. Look at the outcomes though and say, might I need to tweak these a bit? The older programs generally need more assistance. The newer ones that came out in the last few years for grade 7 and 8, they might not need as much. But I want you to be thinking about what your outcomes are, and do I need to tweak them or rewrite them? Okay, I think I've, and then here I'm just saying, if there's any things that you want to change or to do differently, you might want to do that. Maybe there's a great video. I know students oftentimes will talk about Father Mike Moreau, Father Catfish, and he's got some good videos. Well, maybe he's made a video on your topic and you'd like to weave him in. If you go on the lesson plan tab, I have like a list of 10 resources of different people speaking websites. So you might want to check some of those out to see different resources, kind of creative ways to engage students. Okay, so that's the basics of it. The challenge will be, like Stephen, you're at a high school, you can walk down the hallway to the religion teacher, you've got the resources there, you're set. For somebody not at a school and not in Edmonton, it's going to be a challenge. But when I'm thinking about it, everyone outside of Edmonton, I believe, is in a school. So just go talk to a religious educator in your school, somebody who teaches religion. And then if you're a student at the U of A, the college has these resources as well. The U of A library has some of them. So the college library is a part of the U of A system, but we've got our own holding in our building. Something to make sense of. The one thing I wanted to speak about, and I will talk to this more after the term, but I know some people just want to get a jump start on the assignment. Go make disciples That is the document that was approved by the Minister of Education as a locally developed course for RS 15, 25, and 35. And we'll look at that after the break, but that's the document that's approved by the Minister of Education. And so that's the one you want to make sure that, okay, I'm teaching in those areas. And then you go to the larger curriculum textbooks to make those, to fulfill the aims of that document. And I guess just as a whole, make it interesting, like do some good pedagogy. Try something different, take a risk. That's what education should include. It should be taking a risk, not just putting people to sleep. Religious education is kind of scary, especially if you're talking about something that you don't know very well. So you might want to do some background reading, and I've listed a few resources here that you might want to read from. And just to give you a little bit of groundedness, you can also look in the front material of the program, or you could also look, if you're looking at a unit, there's usually a page or two giving background information for the teacher. So read that, help yourself out, okay? I realize that for most, the vast majority of people teaching religion, they feel like they're in the deep end of the pool, that they don't have much of a background, and it's kind of scary to be learning. And so if you give yourself a little bit of background, that's great. The other thing, and we'll talk about this again after the break, just take a chance. And when you don't know the answer, because you can't possibly know the answer to everything, just tell that to the students and say, let's learn that, and put yourself out there, and stick to the resources, stick with your goals, but also take some risks, right? And students appreciate real conversations. Good. How's that sounding so far, Stephen? Any questions? Good. Did they make the trade yet? Carlson's not an Oiler yet? Nothing? Okay, good. Okay, now the next part, I break it down step by step what I want you to do. So the first one, before you teach anything, prepare for teaching and learning. I want a written explanation, 500 to 700 words, saying what your lesson, what year you're teaching from, what unit, what lesson plan, what are you covering, and then what are the outcomes that you're doing, and what strategies, teaching and learning strategies, are you going to use to achieve that outcome. So just basic teaching 101, just so you're planned and you've thought through. And that's just basic. And then send that to me, email that to me. But I also want you, along with that, to actually do a written lesson plan, whether handwritten, typed, but the old anticipatory set, an introduction, and then what strategies you're using. You've got your outcomes on it. I've got a few different alternatives for outcomes. Like, Stephen, you've been teaching for years. You just use whatever lesson plan you feel comfortable with and format. That's, if it works for you, you go for that. And I'm good. I'm not grading this part. What it is that I want you to be prepared before you teach, so that when students have this to me, then I know you're prepared for the day. Step 3 is to actually teach your lesson. Now, I've put down groups of 3 to 5. So if you're in a group of 4, Stephen, then I might recommend seeing this is that, can you find a time at the end of March where you can maybe meet for 80 minutes for 2 of you to teach and another 80 minutes for the other 2 to teach. I've left the option if you want to record the lesson and then watch somebody teach it. It makes me cringe that we're doing this in education, because when you have to teach somebody and there's actually interaction, and let's say you're teaching the grade 8 program, and then you ask a question and there's actually somebody giving a response. And if you're watching somebody live, you act like a grade 8 student, okay? And you maybe flub up an answer, or you go off a tangent, or whatever it is, give a partial answer. Do these things so it feels a little more real. I think if it's video recorded, it's going to be more distance. The technology already puts a space between us, but if we record it, it's even more. But I realize for some people, it's going to be a lot. So I don't know if it'll work out for some people if you've got spring break, whatever, a Saturday to do it on, but you might consider that. We'll see how it goes. I'm open to suggestions. Step 4 is you can complete the peer review. So after you're done teaching, Stephen, the 3 people that were watching you will write up a review of your lesson, and there's a form to be filled out. So it's very basic. Be kind to one another, model Christian charity, but there is a space that you can offer a criticism, right? Or a room to grow. And we need to hear that. And we all can grow in our teaching. So that's also included there. And it's important, please do that right away so the person gets feedback immediately. As they're doing that, after you're done teaching that grade 8 lesson, what I would like you to do is just to reflect yourself and say, on the experience, and say, how did I do? How did it go? Were there any surprises? What was I pleased about? What was I disappointed about? Just the usual reflection that we do in our teaching that allow us to deepen and grow. And so there's nothing that I need you to write up for step 5. I'm just saying it explicitly, that make sure you reflect and think about your teaching. The sooner after the teaching, the better. So you can capture the most important things, right? Step 6. So you receive feedback from your peers and you've reflected on the lesson plan yourself. Now for step 6, you write up a report, an analysis, 8 to 1,200 words of how it went. And so here, did I achieve my outcomes? What have I done different strategies? What did my peers say? Is there a challenge that I had or something that I should have done differently? What are some things I would do differently? And then also consider larger educational aims, maybe a theorist that you like, something that you can take from elsewhere and have it inform the lesson, right? Something from class. Maybe it was a historical figure or a different reading that we're going to cover in March. Make connections, larger connections to the theory. That really brings pop to a presentation. And then at the end, step 7 is handed in like this. So you make one document, actual lesson plan. The preparing ones, those you handed in before you taught, put those at the start. Then you put your learning community assessments, that's feedback from your peers, and then your analysis piece that you've written. And then finally, any outside references that you use, put them down in a bibliography. And that's all one document. And then I get to read through it. And then I provide feedback to you on a rubric. Here's the grading for it. Content and organization. This is more, I guess, in the written analysis. That's where most of my grading actually is on that final piece that you've written. The outcomes, that's significant because I want to see what kind of outcomes you've listed. Are they appropriate, clear? We'll talk about that in March. And then your teaching and learning practices or processes. Here's just me as an educator giving feedback on, did I think it worked? Was it engaging the students? Did it allow their reflection and growth? And then finally, your reflection on teaching of RE. What's the richness and the depth of thought that comes from it? Finally, matters of convention, spelling, writing, sentence structure and stuff, that's all good. And then I grade it according to the rubric. And the rubric's a different document. Okay, how are we doing, Stephen?
Yeah, so far so good. I was just have one question.
You bet.
In the lesson, if it's live, I'm planning to make sure it's live. I have spring break that last week in March. Can we use technology such as, I know I use Quizlet with my class. I use Kahoot. Can we use that? Okay.
Absolutely. Anything like that. I hope that from the different examples of a history of RE, you get a sense of the variety. So by all means, and things that work for you in your teaching, grab that in. I always found when I was a high school religion teacher, if I needed, I like to be creative in my teaching. And what I would do is I would go down to the English language arts teacher and we'd talk pedagogy, and I would learn so much and have different ways to engage things. So by all means, borrow from different teachers and from your experience too. Great idea.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, Good on that. Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share. You asked a good question. I'm just thinking about if there's anything more that I should do. Part of the problem is that we've kind of opened things up here. I've gone over the lesson plan. We've looked at what we'll use as a curriculum, but there's still some small pieces that I haven't quite filled in yet. Like we'll read through the actual approved document from the minister, and then we'll also look at, outcomes, what I'm expecting for that, just aims and what to do with that. But I still think religion is one of the hardest subjects to teach, because you get such a wide variety of backgrounds coming to it, and usually a lack of knowledge. And then it's kind of sensitive and it's taboo topic in our society. So it's tough. It's no doubt it's tough. But I think if students really appreciate somebody who's authentically trying to engage in allowing a faith tradition to speak to them and to ask larger questions. I think that goes a long ways. Good. Okay. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it for that assignment. I'm sure once I jump into the curriculum,
Yeah, isn't that it?
I'll
Yeah,
have some thoughts, but I haven't had a chance to do that yet.
that's cool. Why don't we go on to the next part? I'll do the other assignment here, the mission plan, or the mission statement, I should say. Good. I'll enlarge it. Good. I think I mentioned another time was that for new teachers, undergraduate students, when I teach the course, it's helpful for them to be thinking about kind of a larger mission statement about what their teaching's about. And what's neat in a Catholic school, a Christian school, a religious-based school, there's a clear sense of mission and what it's about. So that's a benefit here. And for somebody like yourself, Stephen, who's taught for several years, it's kind of neat for you to think about now that you're in a different setting, you're in a Catholic school setting. But even for teachers who've taught a while and haven't worked this through, I think it's just a good exercise. Like I was doing some work on my own kind of mission statement and my goals as a professor and teacher in the last year. So it's just something good to be doing. So what the goal then is to develop a Catholic Christian mission-based statement for yourself as a secondary subject specialist teacher. So I think about it, if you imagine something that you're going to leave on your desk or put up on the wall in your classroom to remind you of what your mission is, what's your purpose. If we talk a lot about identity and forging an identity, how teens need to forge an identity, it's helpful as teachers to forge an identity, and we can do that through this project. So it's quite simple, straightforward. It's half of your final exam. It's worth 20%, and then there's questions that will fill out the rest of the exam. But it's just one paragraph maximum and a scripture verse that manifests. I put here a spirituality of the Catholic teacher. And what do I mean by that? So here I have, what are your fundamental reasons for becoming a teacher? Why have you stuck around education? What inspires you, moves you? What are the most important values? What's a story? What's your story? Thinking about these things gives us direction. Teaching is often called a vocation. And so in Christian terms, we talk about vocation. That means a calling. So we're called to this. And how has God led me to this? Now, for some people, that might seem really overly religious, but if you believe that the Creator made all things and there's some order to our universe, is that the Christian thought that God has created each person with gifts and talents, in some larger purpose. That's what we're talking about here. That larger purpose, that the one who made all things is giving us direction, and we seek after that. You can also consider, and you should consider, learning from the course. So maybe there was a historical educator that really struck you, Jean Garçon, or Dewey, or whoever it was, Aquinas. Maybe it was one of the presentations by somebody, Maria Montessori. Whoever that is, think about what stood out to them, what attracted me, what kind of turned the light bulb on in my mind and stirred my heart. And you start to understand what your calling is. So in a lot of Christian faiths, and I know for sure in Catholicism, it's not that a calling from God. Sometimes it's outward, like Jesus calls his disciples to follow him. But oftentimes a call is more about, it's something within us, something we're moved that, and there's a certainty with it. There can be a certainty that's more certain than what 2 + 2 is, or what we learn in a physics class. But it really grounds us. It's about our purpose and our beliefs about life and about what and who we are. So these are the kind of things we want to be thinking about and reflecting on. You might want to think about the pedagogies that fit, what values and vision, what's important to you. Think about what symbols, what you have hanging in your classroom, what's most important to you. So once you've kind of reflected and thought about this, then you start crafting a 1-paragraph statement. Chances are you'll have way more than 1 paragraph, and you need to get it down and work it down and simplify it. And then I also ask that you think of a biblical passage that connects to your values. What might be it? So let's say if what's really important is social justice in your classroom, that students are treated fairly, equitably, kindly. And so you think social justice. Well, there's lots of biblical passages that deal with justice. You could connect with that. Maybe a theme would be of importance. We think of Jesus as a teacher. Maybe one of his teachings really stands out to you. And so you could work it on along that side. Maybe relationships, that could be another theme. Maybe wisdom, how to live well, could be that you want to shape the whole person. So maybe you're involved in coaching or student council or different extracurricular at the school, and that's really a focus. Maybe the intellectual side. Maybe you're a math teacher, math 30, 31, or 30-1, and so your focus is really on challenging students. Maybe that's where you feel called, that intellectual side. So think of that, and by all means, email me, send me what you're thinking, and say what biblical passage could connect to that, and I can give you some examples. Oftentimes, Googling things can help too. Lastly, then, once you have your mission statement drawn up, then I want you to up to 2 pages to give an explanation of it and how that relates to, say, your teaching where you're at today, Stephen, and how that mission kind of informs what you're doing today. For some students, they're going to have to imagine that more so, and imagine a group of students. Here I have, you can also think about teaching as a formation, right? We're not just teaching subjects, but we're teaching human beings. And so here there's this idea of formation, of making a human connection and helping kids grow and to become who they are, and showing them boundaries, and in some ways we help them to know right and wrong and how we should treat one another, how to be merciful, all these things as the Spirit moves. And then the last point here at the top, an articulation of how a student learning from you as a teacher in this Catholic Christian educational context might find a principle or a path for transformation in the young life. So here, if we think of the 3 models of inform, form, and transform that we talked about in that historical element, here transform is how somebody might come to love Jesus more and follow him. Now, that's not for every student explicitly, because let's say we have a Muslim student in our class. We wouldn't want to force that on anybody, and we want to respect the wishes of parents. But at the same time, we leave the invitation out there, right? The church never forces, but it always it can proclaim the faith. So that's what we're talking about here. Challenging a student why they should love one another. Talking about classroom discipline, and if that's Jesus' command to love one another, what does that look like in terms of how I run classroom discipline? What does that mean? What is love about, right? You can see where this can just unravel in so many ways, and there's so much meaning. But in this, you just want to give an example of how this might work out, because I realize you only have 2 pages. Good. So you got your mission statement. I said 2 pages for writing. Follow APA style. And these are only necessary for references outside of the Bible and course materials. The font is listed there. And then the grading will be divided into content, organization, writing, mechanics. All right. So content, what I'm trying to do here is content is worth twice as much as the other 2 parts. Okay. So that's the focus that I want you to have. I think what I meant there was content. If content is worth 2, then organization is worth 1 and writing mechanics is worth 1. I guess I should clarify that on the handout. That is a quick summary. What's any questions or thoughts, Stephen?
No, I think I'm good with this.
Yeah, and I brought it up now because I didn't want people all of a sudden to be like, oh man, I got to think about this in the next 3 days. If you can think about it as we're working through the term, it'll help you to put something together. You jot a note here or there, a sticky tab, you slap it up on a wall, and maybe you got 12 sticky tabs by the end of March, and then that gets to be easier to write in the final exam. Good. Okay. That's the 2 assignments. And I guess any other questions, thoughts?
No, I'm good. Like yourself, I gotta go too. Pick up my wife. She tore her Achilles and can't drive. So
Oh, good Lord. When did that happen?
it's been almost a month. She's had surgery, but it's her right.